Welcome to Mural Backstage Pass. My name's Mark Tippin. I'm the head of services for Mural, and we've got a panelist of experts from around the globe to help us here this morning. As you may know, if you've tuned in before, for the next actually 90 minutes, right, Robert? We're going for a full 90 this time,
I
aren't we?
think we are. We're going for the marathon here.
We're going for the marathon. All right. So for the next 90 minutes, we're going to take you behind the scenes of a teamwork session. And we encourage you to use the chat and the QA you'll find in the Zoom interface to offer comments and ask questions as we go. Our goal is to help you gain confidence in using Mural in all sorts of ways. And with Mural Backstage Pass, we're just broadcasting work as it happens. It's not rehearsed, it's not scripted, and we hope that this inspires you to use your facilitation superpowers in new ways with your teams. What I'm going to do is, I think I'm just going to hand it over to you, Robert. And you can tell us a little bit about what we're going to be doing in today's session.
Right. So everyone, thank you very much for joining. What we are going to do today is something related to self-expression. So a little bit of a backdrop for this. Last year, we had a group of people come together who all were interested in learning how to either more frequently write, do a little bit more writing and content creation, but also to get past some of the hurdles that they had experienced with actually doing content, with actually expressing themselves and doing more writing, and whether it was poems or articles on Medium or blog posts, whatever it may be. We were attempting to kind of figure out, A, what was stopping people from doing so, and B, what were some workarounds or some practices that we could do to get them in the habit of writing more. And it was partially successful. We had some few people that posted some really good content, some really interesting ones, very in-depth and somewhat personal at times. But it was really insightful to see how people went about going about doing regular content creation. What we're attempting to do today is to revisit that a bit, but we're going to kind of expand the net slightly. So we're going to be looking at different ways in this session of not only some ways that people are currently expressing themselves through content creation, writing, but we're also going to look at some things that are blocking us as a collective and seeing if there's some parallels between each of us that correspond to, say, well, I love to write, but X, or I really wish I could do more content creation, but Y, and kind of explore that with the people that are on our panelist side. Now, this is going to be a multi-stage kind of session. We'll probably get done a bit early, so it won't be the full 90 that we've kind of scheduled, but it's purposeful to do that just because a lot of what we do is at the end is going to be discussion and retrospection and figuring out each other's perspectives on how we kind of go about things. Also, I tend to save introductions towards the end so that we can get through a lot of the process and not kind of like put that introduction in the beginning, just because it's easier to correlate what a person thinks with who they are and wrap that up in the same package. If at any time anyone on the panel has questions about this process or what we're going to be doing, you're more than welcome to speak up. If anyone who is viewing this on the Backstage Pass side as an observer and wants to ask questions about what this is, what they're doing, how this can be applied in other places, it's probably a good idea to start populating the Q&A in Zoom now, so that at times when when the panelists are going through their exercises, I'll be able to look at the Q&A and kind of see what people are talking about. And I think other people on the Mural side can also bring up some things that people are asking about. So this will be a fairly smooth session all the way around. And we'll try to make this work for everybody. Does
Sounds
anyone
good.
on the panel have any questions or anything they'd like to point out?
Yeah, I was going to say, for the benefit of the audience, I don't want to give things away, but I think it would be really interesting for people if you zoomed all the way out so people got a sense of like how a session like this was designed. It's a fairly sizable canvas with many parts. And so some people might not be used to seeing something with this many individual exercises. Can you say a little bit about maybe how long did it take to pull this together? Are you pulling things from existing canvases? I think people might be interested in that.
I think you're right, Mark, and that's a great question.
Well, thank you.
All right, it's a great, yeah. So I need to give credit where credit is due. This is based upon the work of Sandy Lamb out in Germany. She's a service designer and a product designer, and she helped me with the Global Virtual Design Sprint in November. This basically took one of her default templates and we retrofitted it for Valentine's Day with the help of Amelia from Mural as well, Amelia Elstrom. So what this is meant to do is to take something called a lightning decision jam, which is an AJ and SMART process that essentially cuts out a lot of the discussion that normally goes into decision making and kind of leans on process to kind of work through things. So we took the default template that we had done from the event. We kind of made it beautified for Valentine's Day and made it theme appropriate. And then for each section, instead of going from like a vertical kind of scale, we went horizontal. So we started on the left and we're going to have everyone work from left to right, going through multi-stages of sessions. The one thing that you will notice with this particular template is that there's an activity that we repeat often, which is affinity diagramming. If you're not familiar with that particular way of doing things, I'll explain it at the time. Also at the very top, this is meant to be a summary section. So a lot of the things that we do here in this section are going to be updated in this particular panel here. And then finally, towards the end of the session, there's a section here for action items. So it's not just kind of speculating on what ideas we come up with today. We're actually going to be putting in some action items for each person to basically follow through and do in 2 weeks. So this is something where probably the panelists didn't realize that they may have work to do after this, not intentional. This is just to showcase that if you were to project this out in team meetings or other situations where your team may be stuck on something and you want them to move past a particular event or make a critical decision on, say, like a roadmap or aligning on a project, this is a really good way of figuring out what's stopping everyone and ideating on a solution and then putting some accountability behind it. And this is where it kind of all comes together right here in the Eisenhower matrix on the right. But again, it was really the partnership with Mural and Amelia that kind of brought this all together, but it was based primarily on Sandy Lamb's work.
Wonderful. Well, I'm really excited to jump in and see how this all plays out. As we go, if there's features or best practices or something, I'm going to advocate for just pointing them out and try not to be disruptive, but for the audience that might not have noticed something cool and subtle that just happened, I'll try and call those things out.
Yes, and Layla's right. For it can also work for wedding planning, especially if there's issues with what's going to be spent on what. This tends to work fairly well. And probably this canvas works in terms of like its color theme. It's like we want to be romantic and feel very good about it and keep it in the right vibe. So by the way, you'll be seeing a lot of that vibe kind of flavor throughout this entire presentation probably.
Someone mentioned baby shower too. Seems it's got so many uses.
Yes, I think maybe the theme is what's kind of bringing out the comments. But okay, so if you are a panelist and you are looking at this and you're wondering how to get involved, I just shared a link in the mural on your side to come in as an anonymous animal. So if you're not already linked to the mural, you can use that link to kind of get engaged. The one thing I'll point out about this exercise is that you'll notice that there are a bunch of cards here, digital cards that correspond to each section. Now, this is a closed card kind of exercise where there's a lot of cards here, but there's easily, if you have a lot of people, can tend to spill out. It's purposeful in that we're not going to expand the card set beyond what's here. And that's meant to basically make sure that we don't go overboard with creating 300 cards of different inputs, and we can condense what we're doing down into a certain time box. It's a little bit easier to do it that way. Okay?
Makes sense.
Right. So let's begin with the first one here. This and again, this is about writing. So let's start with what's feeling good about when it comes to expressing yourself through your writing. And what you're going to be doing is thinking about how you currently self-express yourself, what you currently do in terms of like maybe on Twitter or on Medium or maybe on LinkedIn. Maybe you write in a physical book or you do a diary. So what kinds of things do you currently do on the panel that you really feel good about in terms of like things that there's a direct correlation to your expressing yourself and putting that down in some sort of medium. The way to do that is basically to just take on any card that you see here and double click on it and start typing. An example for me would be writing weekly Medium articles, which I tend to do. I like being able I got an idea in my head and I have to get it out, and that's a perfect way of doing it. So we're going to give about 5 minutes for this and see how fast or slow we go. And again, there's no There's no like set web time to kind of get everything done, but just put out what's in your mind in these boxes. And if you have any issues with getting into the mural, go ahead and put that in chat, and we'll try to troubleshoot that as it comes up.
And I just want to make this clear: is this something? Are we inviting everyone on the call into the session as well, or is this just panelist activity?
That's at the discretion of Mural. So
Okay.
if there are people that are observing that really want to do this and get involved with it, I have no problem bringing them in.
Okay.
So yeah,
I'll put that question to them. You know, if you're, you know, vote in the chat. If you want in, let us know and we'll share the link.
Yep. Otherwise, you just feel like hanging out.
That's fine, yeah.
Real quick, Mark, can you see my Zoom webinar chat from your end as I'm sharing my screen, or is that you can't see that panel?
I can see Zoom webinar chat and the Q&A and the video. Is that what you were asking?
Yeah. Do you see my window that I'm showing here?
Oh, no.
Okay,
Zoom will only, yeah.
Okay, so there's like some comments in here that are not very complimentary to you, and I just don't want you to.
Okay. That's right, please. Just my ego can't take it, please.
Well, you know, sometimes people, they get a little harsh, but you know, we have to stay in the mood for today, because
That's right.
This is all about feeling good about things and, you know, being kind to one another.
That's right. Well,
and
you
be
got to
kind
think.
to ourselves. So
that's right.
Probably the hardest thing about writing, being good about to yourself about your tastes.
Yeah,
that's right.
We're on good vibes now. We're gonna go into the blues in a little bit, but for now, let's just kind of feel like something that really works for you.
I was going to say, as a facilitator, you have the magic catchphrase, "Thank you for your feedback." Right. So if someone just says,
Jerome's really in the mood, so yeah, got it. Yeah, Augustine makes a good point that part of the beauty of Mural is that if you do this, like kind of online sessions like I do, and I usually do in a webinar format at least twice a month, you can invite anyone that's observing or taking part in it anonymously through the anonymous link. So you can really bulk up on that, and people will get they'll get a first impression view of how to use the tool, and it's worked for me very well. Although so in the back of my head, I'm always afraid there's going to be somebody that just comes on and starts deleting everything. And you're like, all right, which anonymous animal is the one that's causing issues? Is it the skunk? Right. Is it the squid? Is it the elephant? You can never tell.
That's right. We could have a safari.
I'm telling you, the next feature that Mural should have is that you can actually change the animal set for the anonymous. So it could be presidents. Oh, it could be actors and actresses. You could be a city, like famous cities. So that instead of like the animals and the icons there, you could actually be like, you are now Olympia, Washington. Be like, oh, cool. I've always wanted to be a city.
The other day I got a user mentioning how awkward it is when somebody joins and they just show up as a random pig in a mural.
Yeah, we've heard that there are a couple animals that people are like, I am not okay with being assigned, you know, this particular animal.
Or you could do a random button. So when you join, you hit the random button and it goes and it does a spin, and then you can keep on doing it until you find one animal that you like, but you have a minute to do it. So you only have a minute to choose, and then you're in with whatever you have. Okay, we have about 20 seconds left. Wrap up your thoughts if you got them, and then we'll leave the world of happiness and get a little bit bluesy a bit. Right, so if you are currently working on a card, go ahead and finish that off and click anywhere outside of it to end it, especially if your name's Mark Tippin, sir.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Let go of that note. You don't realize if you've got it selected, no one else can do anything with it. You know.
Here's a feature that Mural could possibly do. I've had this issue before where there's people that just forget to unclick or click somewhere else to deselect a card. There should be an admin superpower where you can actually right-click on that and say deselect for person, so that you can actually deselect them. So if I need to move anything, like to another section of a mural, I don't have to wait till that person deselects it. I can actually like override their selection and do something different.
That's a great tip. Maybe we could call it whack knuckles with ruler.
No.
Oh, that's not very Valentine-y.
No. That's not very Valentine-y. That's just take over, or like take note.
That's
okay,
right.
So now that we've gone through the positive, let's figure out what's breaking your heart about writing. When you're thinking about the things that are blocking you, not working, making you super sad, you're really lonely, you sit in a dark room and you just rock back and forth about the fact that you can't write or can't do content. What are those things that you're singing the blues? What are the issues that you're dealing with? Is it time? Is it just being too self-critical? Are you too much of a perfectionist? Do you not know what to write? Kind of put everything that's affecting you, not necessarily just in general, but you specifically, some things that are kind of problematic for you in terms of writing your own content. And again, we'll give 5 minutes for this, and kind of don't dwell too far in this. Don't get too depressed. This is just a session, and I wouldn't want you to go into the weekend feeling bad about yourself. So get a little bluesy, but don't get too far in the muck. Another feature you could think about, Mark, is that a lot of people, when I do these sessions, are always asking for some sort of music to play while they're doing things.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, somebody will start playing something on their browser, like YouTube or some sort of music. It would be kind of cool if there was an add-on feature in Mural where you could actually plug into a Spotify kind of connection, or Pandora or something else, where it literally is like something where it's a play button, so that if you have your favorite kind of tunes loaded up in, like, say, rainy jazz or some sort of mix, it literally can pipe that into the client on the Mural side. And people can kind of hear that through their speakers, and they can control the volume in relation to anything else.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because we share Spotify, and even Luma instructors have built several playlists for different types of workshops that they're kind of our go-to. And I've been tinkering with some plugins on the Mac from a company called Rogue Amoeba that allows you to kind of magically kind of borrow sound channels. So theoretically, I could take something playing on my computer, and with a little EQ and volume, pump it into the mic feed from my headset. But there's some glitches as when new versions of Zoom come out, and things break, and then you have, so it's not a super simple solution. An integration would be awesome.
Well, what I'm thinking is that normally when I copy and paste a URL that Mural recognizes as LinkedIn, it'll attempt to not only grab the image of the person, but also the description. So it tries to take the available XML data and import them in. There's probably an API for, say, Spotify or something else, where if you copy a URL for a Spotify playlist, that Mural could somehow render it, and instead of putting the default image and description, it actually loads a small player that you can put in the Mural itself. So you can put it like just like some sort of decal or something else, and it has a play button. It has kind of like a playlist for like or the description of what is on Spotify. And then it doesn't have to necessarily do constant calls to Spotify. It just takes the decal for the playlist itself and just has it there. And then that's a facilitator superpower that can go into the mix.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, I'm going to come back into this recording. I'm going to take that snippet. I'm going to pass it off to Megan and our product team. I'm just going to say, if you want to make me happy, do this. If you want a Christmas gift to every facilitator,
that's something. That's something on the Mural side that would be really interesting to do. It's like, what happens? It's almost like people are going to start testing the model. What happens when you copy and paste this URL? What does Mural do?
Well, there's also, you could be using this for instructor voiceover, right? You could you could have like the instructor actually giving you instruction around a thing, self-guided. In addition to reading, you could add this whole other audio experience around a
Yes.
particular part of the canvas. That's pretty cool.
That's one of those things. It's like, it's always been interesting to see, okay, what do I do if I put a copy and paste a URL into Mural? What does it do? And if the extensibility of the platform were to kind of experiment with this and just see what happens, you can even keep it in the you keep it in like demo version or just for people that are in the Mural Pro program. Then you can really have some fun with it, and you could probably even do design sprints around those things. Small little like 2 or 3 day increments where designers, developers remotely can get in and get a demo going and bring that up to leadership and say, you know what, this may seem like a good idea.
Yeah, it's also, you know, that's another great use for the design sprint is you're going beyond just what we have here, neat idea, pressure testing it a bit with a team where it actually takes into account the risks and rewards, but then what you end up with is something you could present in front of customers throughout the year at different trade shows and events, and you have a way to actually present things in a way where they could be setting priority for new work streams and a backlog for, you know, Mural experiments. So
Yep, it's the small things that win people over sometimes, and it doesn't necessarily have to be about the big things. So 10 seconds left, everyone. If you are wrapping up anything, go ahead and do so. It looks like everyone's filling out a couple more cards left. Just getting everything out. That's, anything's affecting you, that's the way it goes. Okay. So if you'll pardon me for a minute as your facilitator, I'm going to do a little bit of finagling on this side. I'm gonna probably move some things a little farther down and expand out this canvas.
So the other thing I'd just like to point out while Robert's doing that is this is really excellent group facilitation, right? So there are these points where you want people to just jump in and do lots of stuff, but you have to remember to close it, right? Everyone stop, deselect. Why is that important? Because he just duplicated everything over from one space to the next, and he wants to be able to capture everything, all of the goodness from what just happened, and be able to duplicate it into a new space. So having, as a facilitator, just having these kind of crisp moments where you enforce, yes, please stop typing, hands off, deselect. It's to benefit the next step, not just to get people to stop and pay attention to something else.
Yep, yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to gather everyone with my Mural superpower and move my Zoom bar out of the way so I can actually affect it. And I'm going to summon everyone to where I'm looking at. So this next part here is to organize the issues and concerns we've had as a collective and start putting them into categories. And this is done through Affinity Diagramming. I'll briefly explain how that's done, and then the group can go ahead and have at it. So with Affinity Diagramming, you're looking to take all the different cards here and put them into categories that seem logical to you and also as a group. So the easy way to do this is basically to look in the cards here down here and look for 2 or 3 that seem similar. I'm just going to put I am emo and desire for uniqueness here. I'm just going to put them, say, for example, let's say the category is feelings. So then you take these 2 and you put them right underneath this category. Now obviously they're not quite feelings, but this is what Affinity Diagramming is. You can basically choose a category card, put your own category in, and then start slotting in cards that seem to make sense. And if you need more categories, you can either move to the left or to the right of this particular area. It's expandable through Mural, and it's not a big deal. So I'm going to put these 2 cards back, but as a group, you can go ahead and sort and move any of the blue cards you see here underneath the category cards above. Name your own categories if you like. There is no time box for this. Just keep on sorting and moving things around until it seems everything seems to be fitting in the right place. I will say that if you have one of these that has 15 cards all the way down in one category, it probably would be a good indicator that you need to break that up into 2 categories, maybe a subcategory of the other one. But that's basically the exercise. I'll move these 2 over and then give a couple more areas for categories. By the way, for those of you who are not familiar with Mural as much as I am, if you want to copy a category card without doing a copy and a paste, all you have to do is select one and use, on the Mac, you do Command D, which would bring the category over, and then you can just move it with your mouse arrow. And that's a pretty easy way of getting category cards really, really fast. And I've used that all the time, for even when I'm designing these particular sets. Now I'll move this down here. It looks like the activity is coming my way. There we go. And probably, Mark, as with most murals, you may start out with it making it look like very nice and neat, but chances are when you have a lot of people in the mural, it's not only going to get messy, but even your your set kind of categories like this, you'll realize what you locked down and didn't lock down in the process.
That's right.
And here's a pro tip for you. If you are locking things down, the first thing you want to do, if I can get the thing, is you want to, ooh, is it coming up? Oh, hang on. Mural is starting to challenge me a little bit. Okay, let's see if I can do it. Oop. Well, the tip is that basically you should group things before you actually lock them. And the reason is that if you select like 20 or 30 elements in a mural and choose lock, you're going to end up having to unlock every single one by itself, which in and of itself can be problematic. So as I was attempting to do here, you want to select 2 items, right click, it'll give me it. No, there's too much activity. And you put group, and then you want to do lock. That way, when you unlock it later on, you'll have no problems kind of getting to that particular element right, with all the sub-elements involved.
There's, I won't say too much, but in the near future, we have several enhancements specifically around locking and unlocking that I think are going to make it much easier. Being able to, for example, select multiple items and unlock just some of the items. Some people might have run into super lock, which was if the facilitator locks something, it becomes permanently glued and none of the members can unlock. So we're looking at how you can actually proactively select whether it's kind of that super facilitator lock or just lock, and anyone could unlock it.
So I have a suggestion for that. I've noticed that with the tools in terms of locking versus like only the facilitator versus the common
member.
Yeah, is basically invoking like a rule, some sort of feature where you can unlock through majority rule, so that if there is something that locks everyone's trying to get to, it's like if it's in session, you literally everyone has to do is just, there'll be like some sort of wherever you normally in Mural have like indicators like time's up or someplace else, something where there's a vote to unlock some elements that are supposed to be locked down by a facilitator, and everyone's in agreement. It's a pretty fast kind of unlock where it suddenly flips off.
It's interesting. Yeah, I'm sure you run into very interesting use cases with the Global Virtual Design Sprint, where you have a facilitator who's really trying to guide, but then you're really trying to build this adhocracy where everyone really defines and shapes and pivots. And so there's kind of this blended authority where someone is trying to keep everyone accountable within a particular part of the sprint and with the overall sprint flow, but then in moments I can see where you're running into things where it's really not a facilitator in class or facilitator and those being taught. It's a blended authority situation. It'd be interesting.
Okay, so we've organized things by categories. Looks like we've got everything here. Now, before we do any kind of diagramming, what you want to do is, on the panelist side, is look over all the cards and see which ones seem to be very similar in wording, meaning that they're probably in the same category, but they seem to be worded almost exactly or very close. And what you're attempting to do as a group is to look for duplicates or to be aware of 2 cards that are very, very close, so that when we go to voting, we don't necessarily split the vote on cards that are meaning the same thing. Then we choose one or the other. And if there isn't any, that's perfectly fine. This is just kind of like a really quick check by everyone on the call to see if there's something that needs to be called out as something that should be noted as being similar to the next. If not, looks like anyone's highlighted anything. Oh, sorry, I should explain how you do that. So if you do see a couple of things that are similar, what you want to do is select both of them and then change the color from blue to any other arbitrary color that you have. So it could be orange. So it'd be a matter of highlighting those particular two as being the same. And then it's a matter of the facilitator calling that out and saying, oh yes, that one has, those two should be aware that if you're voting on the next one, you should probably change it. So I'll give about 30 seconds for this just to see where people are going to be pointing that out.
I'm sorry, Robert. I was in Hawaii responding to something in the chat and I missed the brief.
I basically said that no, I
basically said Mark is a big
it was going to be a
fat,
terrible joke. No, I basically said that before we go to voting, if the panel sees anything that's redundant or duplicate or very closely worded, that they highlight it with the same color, so that it's a way of being able to kind of make out what, to basically prevent everyone from splitting the vote.
Got it. So that's interesting. That's a really interesting mechanism. So it's not even necessarily within a particular column of sorting. It's across all columns. You're looking for things that are very similar that might have been sorted differently. Correct. Okay.
Okay. So let's do a quick kind of review of what people have been putting in here so far. We got 3: imposter syndrome, lack of originality. I think I need to be the next J.K. Rowling. This has been said before. What do I bring? An arrow to doubt. All good to. I think probably these two are the closest, but I don't think they need to be. One needs to be eliminated over the other. Let's see. You have routine and regularly being consistent in yellow. Lack of routine, ritual, regularity, no sustainable flow over time. Those are very similar.
So can you it'd be helpful to know, because this is something I've seen you do before, kind of as a facilitator. This is where you step in a bit and you kind of you call audibles in real time and make decisions. I'd love to know a little bit more of the criteria. When is something like worth keeping versus okay to collapse?
Well, I'll put it right now. So it's for the people that the two people that basically created these two cards here. It looks like they're very, very similar. I think the only difference between these two is basically being consistent versus no sustainable flow over time. I'm wondering if it's okay with both authors if I basically add consistent to this one here so that it kind of encompasses both and that we can eliminate this card up above. If anyone has any issues, feel free to speak up. Okay. Then I'll go ahead and put consistency here. And I'll take this card out. And normally we put it in the column for redundant cards. In fact, I'll do that so that I keep with the norm that's here. And then we just kind of bring this back up like this. Right. So hard to find the end closure, avoid the so what, getting the structure right, what's the right format length. Yeah, they're all in the same vein. I don't think any of them needs to be eliminated. And as I'm doing this analysis as your facilitator, if you feel strongly otherwise, then feel free to come off mic and speak up. But I think it's good to highlight them that they're all in the same place. But yeah, they probably could exist in the same place or in the same right. You just have to be mindful when you're voting. Not sure if someone will actually find it interesting, useful. Is anyone listening? Is this creating value for others? Or am I just spilling my thoughts here? Yep, all of them in the same. Yeah, they're all very similar. I guess it just depends on how you kind of see this particular aspect of it. I wouldn't necessarily eliminate any of them, but yeah, they are all very close. They're just worded differently. Finally, there is comparing and competing with others. Too much noise from others, influenced by others, what others do. Yep. Again, all in the same kind of bucket, but not really anything where I think there's like a real correlation with eliminating one or the other. Okay. So what we'll do next is we're going to go through a voting round in Mural. For the way this is going to work is that you'll be voting on anything that is in blue and multicolor in this space here. You don't want to vote on anything in the redundant cards area, nor do you want to vote on any of the categories. The way this usually works for the vote is that I'll take the amount of people that are on the panel versus the amount of cards that were produced. So if I take a look really quick at the participants, it looks like we have about, on our side, And I'm assuming that everyone on the panelist side has been kind of going, has been participating. So I'm assuming 8 with the panelists. And then we have about 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, about 50. So let's give everyone a liberal use and go about 8 votes. So you're going to basically vote for 8 different cards here. You can vote for one card more than once if you want to, though historically it's always been better to just basically allocate 1 vote per card. And what you're voting on is basically, out of all the issues and concerns, what are the ones that you feel most strongly about, the things that you probably want to take into the next section of exploring some possible avenues of remedying those problems or issues. So I'll go ahead and start the voting session. Everyone will get 8 votes. Again, you're voting on the top issue that you're going to be dealing with. And no one will be able to see your vote in Mural. So when you vote in Mural, you'll basically be able to click on a card to vote. You can hold down your shift key and then click to remove your vote, and no one will be able to see your cursor or what you're voting on. However, in Mural, there is a feature where if you hit the caret here right in the voting thing, you can see all the people that are currently involved with voting. My name is there, but I'm not going to vote, and everyone else should probably put in their 2 cents. Sometimes if everyone's using an anonymous link, it's fun to say, and the shark is overtaking the owl's about to cross the finish line. And you make it kind of like a neat race between anonymous animals. But since we have people in the chat, or we actually see people's names, I can always say that, Mercedes and Layla are neck and neck. Oh, Layla's got out in front. And again, it's not a race to get your vote. It's just a fun thing to do sometimes. Who's going to be the top 3? Sean's in 3rd. Oh, Mercedes just basically leapfrogged everybody. She's about to end her session. Getting close. Trying to figure out what that 1 vote is. The owl's coming up quick. Layla's right there with Mercedes. Where's that final vote going to land? Oh, Mercedes crosses the finish line. The owl's right behind Layla. Layla's about to, Layla crosses, and now we have anonymous owl about to take the 3rd spot, and then we'll wait for everybody else. And there you go. It's a fun little thing I do sometimes, Mark. And then after that, I stop doing it because then it becomes a pain to do it.
That's right. That's right. You get an appreciation for those announcers, that can do sports in real time and know numbers and just like keep it, do real time sports announcing. That's an underrated skill, I think.
I heard, and I've actually heard this from a couple people in the industry for pro wrestling, that's probably one of the hardest to do, because you have 3 different voices in your ear at the same time. So kind of like broadcast TV is, that particular one environment is where you have everyone telling you what's going on the production side as well as the talent and everything. Yeah. So, okay, so it looks like Anonymous Rabbit. This may not be voting, or may. Or, wow, the cow's back. The cow that just appeared.
That's right.
So sometimes in Mural, the votes may not reflect accurately just because of refreshes and other things. But I give everyone, usually what I'll do is say, okay, for the people on the panelist side, 30-second window or 30-second warning. If you have not voted yet, let me know now. Otherwise, I'm going to end the vote, even though it looks like some people haven't voted. Because it could be a remnant of just a refresh.
That's right. And it's interesting to note that also during a voting session, your ability to interact with the board is temporarily suspended. Mm-hmm. So like I was going to continue dropping relevant little icons on the top, and I'm realizing, nope, I can't do anything.
Are you trying to communicate that I'm talking too much? Because
No.
Are you really trying to tell me that I'm
subtle tipping?
Right, fine. All right, we'll end the voting session, see where everything landed out. Okay. So we have 2 particular ones that have come out. One is lack of originality. I think I've already read this before, and not enough time. Those are the 2 that are there. So those are the 2 that seem to be at the very top. And what I'm going to do really fast is just basically showcase how to take 2 that seem to be in the same space and see if the people that are part of your group can kind of make one more important than the other, or express where they feel things are in relation to those 2 ones. So I'm going to move down here to kind of a scale called the bluest of blues. So what we're going to be doing is taking the 2 cards that we just had a minute ago, And we're going to figure out between the two of these, which ones gives you a better feeling or a worse feeling when it comes to these two issues. So the way this works is that if you are a panelist and you have your little mouse arrow here, you're going to look on this axis here of feelings, and you're going to basically make small circles with your arrow to indicate where you think this card should go. So if what I'm going to pull down here really gives you the blues, then you basically put your circle around here or somewhere over here. If not enough time is not really an issue for you per se, then you want to put your mouse arrow to the left of the feeling scale over here. So let's give us a shot with the one that came in second with not enough time. Let's put this here in the middle. Go ahead with your mouse arrow or your mouse. I better lock that down. Hang on. All right, fish. Stop it. Hang on.
Yeah.
All right, there you go. Okay, so tell me, with not enough time, where are your feelings on this? Does it give you the blues, or does it, you're feeling all right about it? So it looks like the arrows are kind of congregating around the middle. Mercedes and Anonymous Shark are like, nah, I got time. Then everybody else is here. So it looks like it's kind of here, somewhere in the middle here, by around here. So it's got a little bit of blues, but let's talk about lack of originality. Now, in relation to not enough time, does this give you like more of a funky feeling, or is it not so much a thing? Oh, looks like we definitely have the one that we're leading with, the lack of originality. That's something that everyone can kind of come with. So I'm gonna go up here and we'll go to the next section. Hang on, that didn't copy the way it's supposed to. Bring it over. So our top issue is lack of originality. I think I've already read this before somewhere. So there's that. This is the thing that as a group we've kind of said, all right, this is out of everything that we could consider that really gets us down, this is the one thing that's at the top. So what we're going to do next is we're going to do something called How Might We. Now, if you've never done this before, How Might We is a process that was originated by Procter & Gamble back in the 1970s. And this is a way of not necessarily jumping to solutions right away, but speculating on what the solution may be. Now, all you're really doing is basically asking the question, how might we in relation to lack of originality? Now, the easy one, obviously, is like, how might we be more original? That could be one particular one you can do it. Another way, and that's not less straightforward, is for lack of originality, think of it from your own perspective. It's like, how might we be able to showcase our originality in different forms? So it's not just writing, maybe it's like multimedia or something else like that. So I'll leave those two just as examples. And again, there's no right or wrong answer. I'm going to take these and kind of bring them down one like this and start creating these How Might We boxes to go with. And the reason why I didn't populate them like I did before is I want to kind of constrain this slightly, and since How Might We's tend to be a little tricky if you've never done it before. Mm-hmm. So let's see how many How Might We's you can do in the couple minutes that we have. And again, you're going to be asking the questions out loud around a lack of originality in terms of thinking that this has been done before and that kind of stops you. Ask the question of and speculate where we could take things in terms of finding a solution for this, or maybe there's a possibility of going in a particular direction with this particular issue. Go ahead and try it out. Again, there's no right way of doing it. Just kind of ask those questions in those cards and let's see where we end up. I think I'll give about 20. Let's do about 28. That should be good enough. Just in the interest of time, Mark, I want to make sure that
Sure.
We don't overload our panel with too many affinity diagramming exercises, because you start feeling like you're going back in the late 90s with information architecture.
Yes.
see here. There was some questions that were in chat before about how do you select 8 votes over other numbers. So when you're doing the selection of votes for as a facilitator, you have the vote count is default by 5, and then you can basically use an up arrow or down arrow next to that number to indicate how many votes you can do. I think the max you can do in Mural is 20, though I may be wrong on that. That's as far as I've taken it in the past. And Amelia asked about voting on a specific color, but I think I covered that before. Will we have able to have access to this board to post this call even as a template? What do you say, Mural? Is this going to be available as a template after the call?
We can absolutely make it as available. I'm guessing we have a prime copy of this somewhere that has it been mucked up, or was
Nope.
this it?
I didn't do that. So I will. But hey, it only takes me about 15 minutes to clean it up and bring it back. So you'll have the original, and then we can go from there.
There we go. So
I know, Amelia, it was 10 minutes ago. I understand. I'm just catching up here. Man, tough crowd.
That's right.
All right, we're getting close. We have a few more left. If we don't have any movement on those, then we can move on to the next section. When you say final product in quotes, Alexa, what do you mean on top of the blank template? Do you mean like a title for the template itself, or just what the
Oh, so it sounds like he's saying he loves having the content. Like he has like this. If this were a template, if I can read into what he's saying, actually this as a template in a completed state with the content gives some sense of what it was like, and then you can reverse engineer a lot.
Yeah, that's what I think is what she's saying too. So yeah, it's basically we're gonna have both. So it's gonna be this example, and then there's gonna be the blank one, so you can kind of see where it goes from there. I wouldn't necessarily just delete everything that everyone had done, because it would be time wasted. That would be very depressing for Valentine's Day. I'd like to be more of a positive aspect of things, like what we're doing here is valuable.
That's great. And we also package these videos and make them available. All the Backstage Pass ones we share freely. So whether you have both the final state and the initial state template, or just the initial state template, you'd have access to the video as well to kind of scrub around and see like, how was that facilitated? How did it progress?
Mm-hmm. Right. So let's get into this a bit, and we're going to do some, let's not do pink. Let's just do gray and do it that way. So we're going to take what we just did on the left, and we're into prioritizing the challenge statements that we just created. So it is another round of affinity diagramming. So for here, all you have to do is do the exact same thing you did before, kind of take your cards and put them into places up in the category section where they seem to have some affinity or some similarity. Change the category name to something that you want, and then we'll see how everything kind of vets itself out as a group. So have at it, and we'll kind of do the same kind of duplication and looking over things after everyone's done. One of the more frequent comments or questions I get about this template overall is, what is it good for? I think I mentioned it very early in the call. The most frequent use I see for this is for teams that want to work out some issues or problems they're having as a team, not necessarily with the project work, but group cohesion, getting things done that make the team more efficient, potentially some outings. Like I've seen this used for how can we expand our lunch options, or how can we do things better as a group or learn better as a group? So yeah, that's the one I've seen it work at most, and usually it takes 60 minutes to get through that.
That's right. We also did we have a Mural Experience Lab. I think we'll be running again a couple times this year, where I took 2 years of work trying to crack the nut on writing statement starters, and can we put that into a process, because this is hard. Getting it right is so critical. A well-written statement like this becomes the pivot for all sorts of generative work you do next. But it's so easy just to kind of have these statements that are kind of self-evident, like there's just no spark there, there's no inspiration, and it's not easy. I've only run into one person, this woman from Paris, very poetic, and in one of my classes, she wrote 4 statement starters, and they brought the house down. Everyone was just like in awe. So it's possible to get them where you're driven to want to solve this problem, and it's highly relevant, and your brain just expands about all. But most people really struggle, myself included. Writing these things is really a challenge. So being able to have multiple people generate and then look at them, you get closer to that truly breakthrough statement starter. So this is a whole other way to kind of crowdsource ideas and then iterate very quickly, which I appreciate seeing. I don't think I've seen this before.
And as other people are kind of finishing up and kind of sorting things out, if you do want to like kind of highlight early the duplicates that you see, go ahead and do so. Helmar Stammen posted a question about why do you not use a more energizing color like yellow or orange for the brainstorming post-its? That's because I'm a very dull person, Helmar, and especially with this layout, I'm showcasing my lack of originality. So I'm glad you pointed that out. You can probably do more like happy colors when it comes to Mural, and they have a pretty good palette for it. I tend to do things that are a bit more like they don't have a strong hue, just because it takes away from the activity sometimes. So it's a personal choice on the facilitator side, but for me, I'm just I'm just all about gray. Must be age or something. I don't know.
Well, I was going to say gray, being kind of neutral. Also, when you did that, highlight the duplicates. The colors actually indicate a specific meaning. So there's a difference between color and no color, right? Original state being no color, and then adding color, and then between different colors. So I could see how, in this case, starting with gray is really useful when we go to the finding duplicates using color.
Yeah, that's true. And speaking of which, 30 seconds to a minute to find any duplicates or closely worded cards for your own reference, so that when you're going through voting, you're being cognizant of the fact that there are certain things that are very similar. You try to put your vote towards something that seems to make more sense to you. We've got a couple of highlighted yellows. How might we identify what's original in your perspective? How might we reframe what originality is? That's true. Very closely worded. Wouldn't necessarily take one out, but it's very good to know. And Susanna had posted something saying that how might we actually source back to Sid Parnes? He's the founder of Creative Problem Solving at SUNY Buffalo and the Creative Education Foundation. So I'm gonna have to update my notes with that, thanks to Susanna, because I've been saying that wrong thing for years, and finally she has corrected me. So I'm actually gonna put this as an artifact within the mural itself. There we go.
Yeah, it's in I think the session that we just ran earlier this week, we look at 2 different types of questions, one that are solution focused and one that are problem focused. And so you could say, did you try this? Did you try that? Or you're actually steering people towards, did you try this solution? Did you try that? As opposed to saying, what did you try? What did you expect? Right? Which is more expansive. So this is definitely modeling that, inviting people into generative, as opposed to kind of critiquing individual or nailing down specific solutions.
Yeah. I am going to move how might we be original in different ways over to redundant cards. I think that's probably true that with that one, this one, they're very closely worded. So I think this one probably is a bit more detailed on that point. Let's see, originality. Yep. How might we not care if we are original? How might we find a way to just produce without worrying about originality? Those are awfully close too. I think I'm going to leave both, but there could be the argument that this one up here could be removed in the sense that this one is a bit more descriptive. There's how might we make sure to find our unique voice? How might we find trust in our unique voice? How might we find better understand what we have that is original? Make sure to find. I actually would combine this a little bit. So how might we make sure to find and trust our unique voice and trust in? So it would look like this. So that it basically encapsulates both. And I would probably move this over to redundant over here.
The thing I also want to point out, this is a really brilliant use of crowdsourcing and keeping people engaged in every step of a facilitated activity.
Yeah.
Because many facilitators would feel compelled to have to find all the dupes themselves and you know, invest all that energy while people are kind of going off in other directions and not engaging. And this continual invitation to have the crowd look at it, it keeps engagement, but it also, some people are very good at you know, kind of that, you know, the concentration games, what's similar, and other people don't have that skill. So from moment to moment, you're leveraging different latent skills in the group in really creative ways. So while someone's all about that, I can come back and think, because I'm not very good at that. But then there are other aspects where I can engage heavier. So I just really appreciate your facilitation style, Robert.
Well, thank you. I'm also a conflict seeker by nature, so I want to see. I want to figure out where things are similar or the same. But the conflict is meant to be one. I'm trying to gain understanding from perspective, so it kind of feeds into that. How might we make sure to be both original and deliver value? How might we focus on value? Yeah, similar, but I wouldn't necessarily knock one out the other. Okay, we've got 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 20, 30. Let's do 6. Let's do 6. Let's start a voting session. This is going to be for the how might we. Everyone's going to get 6 cards. You're going to vote on any of the cards that you see below the categories. Do not vote for the redundant cards. You can vote for anything that's colored or gray in this section here, right below the 5 categories to the left. But make sure that your votes are only there, and then we'll be good to go for the next section. So far, we're doing really good on time. And then we got plenty of time for ideation and then figuring out where those things land in terms of interest and vibes, which you'll see later on.
Wonderful.
And I've been noticing that the cow and the rabbit don't necessarily vote, which is fine. That'll help me kind of determine as a facilitator which ones are more observing than anything else. Like I mentioned before, if you are observing the session or you want to ask a question, feel free to put those in chat. Mural and myself are monitoring those, so it can be anything out of the ordinary. It could be something that's going on in the session or something else you want to know about the product or even about the process. I'm more than happy to answer those as we're going through this. Mercedes and Glenn wasted no time and just like, bam. Mark, you were third. You were very close.
Yeah.
What's fun sometimes as a facilitator is that everyone's done, but there's one vote left. You can always I wouldn't say troll, but you can encourage them on and say like, okay, that's that one vote is going to impact everything. Got to make sure you put that one vote in the right spot. Otherwise, we could be working on the wrong thing. So it's all up to you, Layla. No, it'll all go downhill if you don't put that vote where it's supposed to be. No pressure. See, there you go. No pressure. We just have a rabbit left. Whoever that rabbit is has got 4 votes left.
Did Amelia leave us? Or is she not voting?
I don't think she's voting. I think that comment about me, like, kind of, you know,
chilled her on the whole.
Forget it. I'm gonna go make some tea or not even engage this anymore. Bad facilitator. One vote left on the rabbit side. There's that moment again. Now it's not necessarily Layla that's going to decide everything. It's going to be an anonymous rabbit that's going to hold everyone's fate. I'll give 30 seconds for that vote to go down. because it could be just a glitch in the matrix, so to speak. And Mark, sometimes what I like to do with, if you have an iPhone, is that I could just basically go like this up to the camera. So it actually has like the dial, so you can actually see the timer going off.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
That one vote is still lingering there. So I'm assuming that could be basically hanging out. And yeah, I'll end it prematurely. And let's see where everyone voted. So let's see what the top How Might Week ends up to be. And we have two that are tied. So how might we make sure to find and trust in our unique voice? And how might we enjoy the process and not the end result only? Both are very good. Let's take both fours, and we'll go down to the arranged by interest. So this is different from the other one in that we are now looking at things from the perspective of which one is more interesting to us as a collective. So I'm going to go ahead and gather everyone again to where I'm looking at. And as before, we're going to go from left to right. You have a low interest or a high interest, depending on what this is. We'll start with how might we enjoy the process and not the end result only. Go ahead and take your mouse and kind of without clicking, just kind of circle in an area where you have where you think this is as an interest for you. And the people that are responding, everyone seems to say it's right around there. So the next one is how might we make sure to find and trust in our unique voice? In comparison to this one you just placed, is it have more of an interest or less of an interest in between these two cards in terms of where you think is? So we've got, seems like there's a majority over here on the left. There's an anonymous owl that's really interested in it, but it looks like the majority is kind of saying kind of more here. So we're moving forward with how might we enjoy the process and not the end result only. Please give me 30 seconds while I kind of bring this over here and update two cards on this side before we move on to the next one. Hang on. I should have probably done this before while I was waiting, but that's okay. Okay, so now we are about to go into a session where we were going to start ideating a bit on some possibilities. Again, summon everybody here. So to recap, so far we said the top issue when it comes to getting our own content and writing is a lack of originality. And then we speculated how might we enjoy the process and not the end result only. So just kind of enjoy writing for writing in and of itself is how I'm interpreting that. So what you're going to be doing now is trying to answer this question. How might we enjoy the process and not the end result only? You're going to ideate in these boxes down here. And again, there's only going to be a limited amount. So there's 28 of them. Go ahead and try to answer this question from your perspective. Is like, how might we enjoy the process and not the end result only when it comes to the issue of lack of originality? How can you kind of reframe it to say, like, I just want to enjoy writing for writing's sake, or producing content? Go ahead and do that. Double click on any cards, kind of put your ideas out in those. And once we're done, we'll do one more round of affinity diagramming, and then we'll be off to figuring out where things fall for us in terms of interest. And I will say that there is a variation on affinity diagramming where you don't have to do things literally from scale where you're looking at a kind of more vertical assembly. Cluster diagramming works very well if you're in a time crunch. That level of diagramming seems to be, tends to go slightly faster. But the why I tend to lean back on a linear vertical affinity diagramming role is that people tend to look at the categories a bit better. They kind of find there's more of an affinity with what they put down there when you do it in that fashion. But for some reason, some people like piles. You just do it in piles.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that's valuable for not only the panelists, but for the observers, if you have any suggestions on how to make these Backstage Pass events more engaging or better, then please let me know and let Mural know by putting your suggestions in the chat or contacting them offline. I know that they do these every Friday and they continue to do them, and they want to make sure that whatever they're producing is going to be something that their audiences are going to engage with. So please do note and let me, or maybe not me, let Mural know what you would like to kind of see in the future. Boy, there we go.
We're going to fix all this silence in post-production.
I
I get John Williams to build us a nice score for this activity.
Well, yeah, you can always post-produce and make a soundtrack and do it that way. Okay. Right. No additional cards. What are you doing down there? I see you. All right. So bring it down to Affinity Diagram. I'm going to move this arrange by interest down a bit so it's out of the way. And bring those cards down so you can do one last round of sorting, because I know all of you love doing it. And come on now. You know what, Mark? I may need to refresh my browser just because
Sure.
I need a little bit of hedge, but so far it's workable. So everyone come to where I am. We're going to do affinity diagramming. We're going to include this extra one that was did here. And again, put things in categories, kind of arrange them where you think they should go. And this will be the last time we do affinity diagramming before we start figuring out where some of these ideas sit with everyone.
There you go. A Zoom tip is you can actually pause and start your screen share. So if there's a moment where you actually have to flip over to another tab or something, but you want to maintain presence, visual presence for whatever you're sharing, you can pause the share, refresh the browser, or flip and check, the status of a next thing or a back channel and email or whatever, and then come back and start it again. And people, the cursors aren't going to move and stuff, but in your thing, but it's a way to pause and move and come back, and not have people go off on the journey with you for whatever you need to do as a facilitator.
And funny enough, if you're also streaming live on YouTube, you can't really do that.
Oh, good to know.
YouTube does not have a pause. It basically just goes, okay, whatever you're sharing. Even now, the workaround being is that in YouTube, I think you can lock a particular tab, or if you have multi-monitors, you put everything that people don't need to see on that monitor. I have numerous recordings where it shows me flipping back and forth from Gmail to Mural in terms of like handling communications in sessions. So
right.
I have to be a little bit more diligent about that, because not many people want to see all my crap that I'm currently concentrating on.
Got it.
I lead a very boring life, and I don't want anyone to. Nobody really wants to know about that. Right. So as we're wrapping up categories, it looks like we still need to put some categories in some of the ones that we've kind of put in things in similarity. Go ahead and put some arbitrary categories here. For some of you that are looking at the cards themselves, just like before, go ahead and highlight particular ones that seem to be very close. We'll make a judgment call on what those are all about. And oops, don't want to put things in grids yet. And go ahead and highlight those. One of the things that's really nice about murals is, say if you have a bunch of sorting going on like it just happened, if the things seem to be out of alignment and they're kind of all, especially if they're really long, you can just basically highlight an entire column. And if Mural doesn't stick it against the grid, you can basically choose like into a column and it'll automatically space those out for you. But most of the time, the grids does a pretty good job of doing that for you. Okay. So let's go ahead and start the voting session, since we're getting close on the top of the hour, and I want to save some time for a little bit of discussion as well as sorting. You're going to be voting on these particular solutions, things that you think would be interesting to do as like some action items, some things that would be kind of fun to explore, and that you think would probably directly address the top issue and the how might we that we had kind of correlated before, which was the lack of originality, and how might we just enjoy the process and stop worrying about things. So I'll go ahead and start a voting session. Let's be liberal about this and do 10 votes with everybody and say like, these are ideas. See where it kind of plays out. Again, you aren't voting on the actual categories. You're voting on, oops, hang on. I'm going to end that session because I fixed the wrong one. Hang on, everybody.
Yep.
Let's do this over. When did I on that? And go for it. Again, you're going to be voting on things that seem to that correlate to the original how might we, which is how might we enjoy the process and not the end result only. Which of these kind of resonate with you in terms of like something that you want to do and take forward as possible action items? Hey, Mark, there's another feature idea that that came up in a conversation when I was out at Control the Room last week. Was an X-ray feature in Mural. So we were debating the nature of the card to be potentially double-sided, where the card you're seeing one dimension of the card, and it's pretty, pretty straightforward. But if you wanted to attach metadata or some other information to the back of a particular card and get a little bit more extensible, there was the idea that that was the back end of the card where it was much more detailed and granular around how it would fit into, say, like GitHub or some other developer platform. And the other is that you could use the X-ray feature where if on a single click, all that metadata could be exposed in the cards, but kind of in a summary fashion that uses a convention that's already within Mural itself. So literally you could go, okay, this is the stage version. Like everything we're seeing now is the stage and what people engage with. But then the backstage of the system side is something much more complex, and there could actually be like a connector kind of system with APIs, so that it's much more granular on that aspect. So literally, you could design like actual database systems and other things with Mural in the same fashion.
Yeah, structured data has come up. Their agile teams want that. Like when you're writing user stories and they have a particular point value, and you could drag them into areas, and then you kind of get a cumulative total. We've had sports teams that are looking at doing what if scenarios with salaries and trying to, do rosters. So, yeah, that really is near and dear to my heart from using Authorware and other kind of authoring tools that we're programming for non-programmers, or like FileMaker, which is brilliant flat file system. Doesn't scale well, but having structured data, or cards that have a particular format where you're filling in data. So there's all sorts of magic stuff you can do mapping fields. So I know that's been discussed, and I'm waiting to jump in on when that comes, because I think that takes all of this to a whole nother level for sure.
Yeah, it'll be a matter of how elegant it can be, whether you don't necessarily just throw the kitchen sink at it. You're actually making it so that it's just as user-friendly as you would from this, but it's just done in a way that's intuitive for the people that are going to be working with the data.
Right, yep.
So now that I've completely distracted you, put your last 2 votes in.
Yeah, okay. Boom and boom. Yeah, just ding, ding.
My fault there.
That's okay.
Fine.
Holding up the works.
That's okay. That's not totally my fault. Okay, so we have 3 that we're going to move forward with. It looks like they're the top 3 here. They're all very close in 4 votes, but I'm going to make as facilitator, I'm going to say the 6 and 5 are kind of like the line, which is brainwrite rather than produce the right content. Think of it as a journal and make a special ritual when you start and finish writing for the day. So those are all 3 really good ones. I'm going to take the 6 and the 5 and the 5. I'm going to move those over into the final stage of this. And again, facilitator note, just give me a few moments to kind of bring everything together, and we will wrap it up for today. So let's put this on the hot pink here. We'll do this one over here. If anyone wants to take the top issue in the how might we, you can go ahead and do that as well, while I'm kind of copying and pasting into this if you want to be active either way, or I can grab them right now. Yep. All right, somebody's already got it. Who's going to get the top issue? Oh, there. Layla, you're way too fast for me, but thank you very much for doing that. Okay, so recap. We cited the top issue as the lack of originality. I think you've read that before somewhere. The how might we speculated on is how might we enjoy the process and not the end result only. And we came up with 3 possible directions. You can think of it as a journal. You can make a special ritual when you start and finish writing for the day, and you can brainwrite rather than produce the right content. So all possibilities. Now, this exercise is decide what to execute. And basically what you're going to be doing is on the right here, we have participant votes. So you want to, like right here, Lisa's already done due diligence and put her name in all three. So say if my name is Mark Tippin, I'm going to double click on this and put Mark to the T, right?
That's
and
right.
I'm going to basically use that as my way of saying, okay, this is going to be my particular one. So let's do Mark to the T there. Everyone's can do that for all these particular dots. And what you're going to be doing is say if I'm Mark and I'm thinking about this particular one, think of it as a journal. I'm going to put this dot in the center. I'm going to go, okay, I want to know how I feel about this. So if you start out with the feelings with this one, and when you're talking about the think of it as a journal option, do I have good feelings about that or do I have bad feelings about it, right? So do I think that that journal would make me feel really good to do, or would it make me feel kind of depressed? And if I was Mark, I'd probably say, you know what, I don't mind writing, so I'm going to put it around here. And this is the y-axis. The x-axis is all about motivation. So what's going to motivate you to actually do this? Is this idea motivating in and of itself? So if I think of it as a journal, does that motivate me to write or does it demotivate me? So I'm going to go, I'm not too much of a journal, so I'm going to be here. And this panel is not, it's not that motivating, but it's a good feeling. So that's where coming out probably where Mark sits on this as an example. Now, everyone will do the exact same thing in that you're going to be putting a dot in the middle and then figuring out between your feelings and your motivations what these ideas mean to you and where they sit. And I will say that you don't have to necessarily try to get into the I'm feeling the vibe section. You can be somewhere where it's just cue the sad trombone and it's just not for you, and that's totally fine. But this is just kind of exploratory exercise on an individual level to see where these things sit with you. And then we can kind of see where it looks for as a group. And then I'll make a judgment call as to whether or not we want to take action items on this, or if you just want to have some brief discussion before we wrap things up. So go ahead at it. Grab a dot that corresponds to the particular idea, where the first one is think of it as a journal. So if your name is Mercedes, you basically take that dot, figure out on the feeling side of things if it's something that you feel good about or that you don't feel as good about. And then on the x-axis, you go, am I motivated to do something like a journal? Think of my writing as a journal. Does that motivate me to write or does it demotivate me? Same thing with special ritual when you start and finish writing your day. Is that a motivator or demotivator? And figure out where all of these particular ideas fit with you.
You know me so well. You almost plotted me exactly on the journal, Robert. I was like,
it
wow.
was throwing a dart on a wall. I did
That's
not.
Right.
I speculated.
I'm never playing you darts. That's for sure. It's like, yeah, right about there. Pixel accurate.
And there is no, it's just for reference, there's no individual judgment on this. This is just basically to get an idea of where we kind of see things. And then I'll kind of explain what the next step would be if you're doing this as a group and how this would kind of act as an action item. So we'll kind of see where everything kind of falls, make a kind of observation, and then wrap things up.
And I'll go ahead, since we have 5 minutes left, I'll go ahead and remind attendees in the chat window, we appreciate 2 pieces of feedback as we run these sessions. And feedback is a gift, and we read each and every piece of it. The 2 things we need from you is first a number from 1 to 10 on your overall satisfaction with the session we ran today, and a short description about why that particular number. So if you liked it, it would be towards the 10 side. If you didn't enjoy today's session, it'd be more towards the 1 side. And then just a little description about why. If you really enjoyed it, what really stood out? What was a key moment that really stands out for you in terms of why you appreciated it? If it's somewhere in the middle, what detracted? What kept you from getting particular value out of this? And go ahead and add that into the chat window.
And if you really weren't motivated at all by this and didn't have any value, just type 0 and disconnect, and then we'll get the message right away.
That's right. That's right.
It'll say it in of itself that, why did I do this?
Now, I realize it's a bit self-selective too, because the people that really just bailed early and said, what a waste of time, are not here to give us the 1s and 2s and 3s.
Hey, some people I want to stick around and have full of hope. And if I've crushed that hope, I definitely want to know if I'm a terrible
right.
person and I need to rethink what I'm doing here. Okay, so let's briefly look at things. So in terms of think of it as a journal, it looks like people are kind of in the middle about me being motivated. Lisa's probably more motivated than everybody else, but there's kind of like a middle motivation here, though it's a pretty good feeling about doing it. When it comes to a special ritual, it looks like it's about half and half. There's like a few that are like, yep, I could definitely see myself doing this to kind of bring up that, to address any kind of originality issues, or that I can enjoy the process. But for certain individuals, maybe not as motivating, or maybe isn't feeling as much, though Lisa feels it's probably very motivating, but or it feels really good, but the motivation is kind of in the middle. And then interestingly enough, the one for brainwriting rather than producing content, that one seemed to have a lot of interest here. And I'm going to kind of take out this person that's hiding behind Amelia. You're hiding behind Mercedes. Got to put you somewhere over here, somewhere around there. So in terms of just numbers, in terms of like a heat map, the journal generally has a good feeling about the journal. The motivation's kind of in the middle. There's a really good feeling about brainwriting from a majority, in that they can definitely see like a motivation to kind of do that. And then there's a mixed bag when it comes to making a special ritual to start and finish writing for the day. Now, really fast, somebody may mention in the chat about using Trello to kind of do this, and you can do that as well if you want to offload it to that place. But what I tend to do with this, after everyone's kind of mapped it out, is you go back up here, and normally this is like how you would end something like this, is you bring everyone's attention to this section here. So I will bring everybody over to where I'm looking at, so here it makes more sense. Again, like we've done before, you usually copy in the results that you just done, but the action items are basically something that people can do in 2 weeks' time. So it'd be something like, and this person could be Mark Tippin, will do what in relation to the things that we had just done. So if I look back over on the matrix over here, kind of possibly all the way to the right, I probably should put that over on the right so that it's a flow from left to right. If I look at what Mark seems to have put up here, it looks like the brain writing exercise was something, the brain write rather than produce the right content, was something that it was really interesting to him over all the other options that were here. So if I go back to that particular one, I would ask Mark, okay, Mark, if you're in relation to that particular solution to kind of getting started with content, what could you commit to in the next 2 weeks that would kind of move the needle forward in a way that makes sense to you when it comes to brain write rather than produce?
So I think I might employ something like a tape recorder, just to kind of be expedient in getting practice and flow, something like that, that's really outside of any of the technology we're looking at here. And I could commit to making that happen.
And so would you, at the end of that, when you're capturing your thoughts, would it be something that you would would you kind of bring that back to the group to consider, or would it just be something personal for yourself?
So actually, you've made me think about it a little bit further. There's several tools now, Zoom included, I think, that can do an automatic transcription. So what I may do is use that flow and then use the transcription, and then bring that back into the group to just let them know how insane I am, and take their ridicule.
And send it back to the group. Okay, so this is where it kind of rubber hits the road. And as a facilitator or a functional manager or somebody that's leading a group, this would be ownership not only of the person that kind of self-declares what they want to do, but it's also a way that in 2 weeks you can make a reservation at a restaurant, you can have a retrospective at some place of a common ground, you could do a lunch and learn, but everyone kind of comes together and you check the progress of what people have done in 2 weeks' time. There's a combination of shame for not doing it, but there's also an opportunity to present and show progress, so people are motivated. Sometimes it doesn't take 2 weeks. Some people get this done in like 3 or 4 days, because they've already told you through this graph here that they have a really high interest in seeing where this goes. So they're feeling the vibe. They want to see where it happens. Chances are they're probably going to go ahead and do it. So that's the final piece of this, and I won't necessarily hold everybody accountable to it, because I want this to feel like a Valentine's Day good wishes rather than like you are doing your homework and I'm going to see you in 2 weeks, and it's not going to be about Valentine's. It's going to be about, seeing if you actually move forward. So that's it. That's the entire process of a lightning decision jam that correlates to a action item that people can move forward with based on their interest and what they think would kind of move the needle forward with content creation. So there you go.
That was great. Well, this was fantastic. Thank you so much, Robert, for all of the pre-work and the prep, and for guiding us through this, for the template on theme. And looks like from the feedback that this was well received
I'll
by
take
everyone.
receptive too.
Receptive. All right. Any comments from anyone else on the session? Feel free to come off mute and share from your perspective a highlight or something you appreciated.
And one last thing I'll say before everyone speaks, if you are motivated to kind of do some sort of action item, do put it in here, because in this section here over on the left where it correlates to the action items, because if I do see some things in here where people want to move forward with things, I'll actually take note of that, put it in my calendar, and if you're really interested, I can follow up with you about where things could go. That's only if you are. This is just basically a exploratory session, but I do like to help, so feel free. Anyway, now speak, please, if you have thoughts.
Yeah, Glenn, Lila, Mercedes, Augustine.
I'll just say really quick that I really like the columns versus clusters thing, and having that broader palette of how to group ideas.
Okay.
Yeah, plus one then.
I thought the instructions were super clear. Like, even sometimes I read stuff instead of listening to a facilitator saying, although Robert, you're a great facilitator as well. I just like getting ahead of myself, and I like having these super clear instructions. And yeah, it was like really, once we got into the flow and got it, it was just like very easy.
Cool. And I'm welcome to hear anything I should improve upon. If I need to stop talking as much as I do, then do tell me. Or if you think there should be an improvement on something process related, then do put that in there as well. Nothing else? You ready to eat? Is it lunchtime over where you are?
That's right.
It's dinner time in Switzerland. I'm gonna have some cheese raclette.
Got it. And it's been 90 minutes, so you've stuck around, and it's been. I'm very grateful for everyone for their participation. So hopefully it was a good use of your time, and you felt like this is something that you can either take forward with for what you do, or you can take the template that we're going to be producing that is a clean template, as well as this one, and something you can use in your own backyard. Do we want Mural? Mark, is it customary to take a group shot in Mural as like everyone on the call as like a kind of like a remembering of what had happened? Do you tend to do that with Backstage Pass?
I do. Well, I'm going to now for sure. So there we go. I've got my capture.
All right. So
and
does everyone want to hold up something that they want to say, like, okay, like for me, I'm just going to pick up something on my desk instead of the sprint book. I got twin staplers I can use.
There you go.
Something else that's there you go. You can do a drawing. Actually, I will do the sprint book.
There we go. All right. Do
what
that.
I've been using previously. All right.
All right. On the count of three, everyone ready?
Yep.
Okay. Boom, boom, boom. Smiles into the camera.
I like it.
There we go.
Okay. Cool. Thanks again, everybody.
You bet. Thank you, Robert. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone.